Hello, my name is Rafael Seiz Ortiz from the Department of Applied Linguistics. In this video, we're going to have a look at several expressions in English for listening. That is to say, the way we deal with and present lists in technical or academic English. These are the contents of the presentation. We will have a look at the function of listing in this type of language. And we will have a look at some examples of listing expressions, that is, expressions that help us present lists in a sequence are according to several correction criteria. The objective is to understand the fundamental function of listing items in technical and academic English, and to know the meaning and use of the most common expressions used for listening in English. You will learn some expressions that are very typical, and you will be able to use them in your writing or when you explain something in the form of a list. Listening has the function, mainly the function of treating, dealing with, and presenting a series of items of information or different pieces of information and details in a systematic way. The order of a list normally has an order related to different criteria, and these criteria are sometimes related to rank importance. Here we are going to have a look at some examples of typical expressions to introduce lists. For example, this topic can best be treated under 3 headings. The word heading is very, very common to introduce lists: X, Y, and Z. Another example, the key aspects of management can be listed as follows. It can be listed as follows is an expression that you can directly use when giving a list, technically. Another examples are, there are 3 reasons why the English language has become so dominant. These are. Then we normally, as we can see in these examples and in the examples we will see later, we use to introduce the list. Apart from these expressions or structures, we use the colon as a punctuation mark. And sometimes we use words such as reasons, causes, consequences, categories, features, words like that help us classify and then therefore list different items of a list. Another example would be, there are 2 types of effect. Types, obviously, is something that we very often use to establish lists. These are 2 types of, there are 2 types of effect which result when a patient undergoes X. These are whatever. Another example would be, the disadvantages of the new approach can be discussed under 3 headings, which are, this is another possible structure that is very common too. More examples. The system is divided into or comprises 6, 7, 8, whatever sections these are. Or the second example is also related grammatically. The mass of 4 voices consists of 5 movements, which are the Kyrie, the Gloria, Credo, Sanctus, and Agnus Dei. As we can see in these examples, to be divided into, to comprise, or to consist of, always with the preposition of, is very useful technically to introduce lists in a systematic way. Another example would be, appetitive stimuli have 3 separable basic functions. Firstly, they whatever. Secondly, they. Then we can introduce lists with the help of a number of sequence connectors, such as firstly, secondly, or first, second, etc., and then also. Another example would be, during these during his tour of Britain, he visited the following industrial centers: Manchester, Leeds, and whatever. The following whatever is also a way of introducing a list in technical English. And last, we have a last example. This section has been included for several reasons. For several reasons, it normally introduces a list. Instead of reasons, we may give other type of items. For example, as I said, causes, consequences, features, etc. It is, whatever, it illustrates. We can use in the list, we can use the different verbs correspond according to the different meanings. Then we are going to see now some expressions to refer to other people's lists. Always when we refer to other people's lists, other authors, we have to make the reference, such as in these examples here, Smith and Jones, whatever, list, X, Y, and Z, as the major. List something as the major, the most important, etc. Causes of infant mortality in this example. Another possible expression would be to list the main features of whatever as follows. As follows, as we saw in other examples, is also very common. Or another possibility is to change the verb, not listing. For example, argues that there are two broad categories of Y, which are A, B, C, whatever. Or the last example, Smith suggests three conditions for its acceptance. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, finally, then, etc. After the list of these examples, and in many others, when you introduce a list, after the list, you can refer to the items of the list, the items that you have mentioned, using expressions such as the former to refer to when we have two items in the list, the former for the first one mentioned, and the latter for the second one. Or after we mention something that implies a list or a difference between two or more items, we can refer to these items and then say respectively, just to classify every meaning into the different items of the list. In conclusion, listening is a skill that implies careful analysis of different features, similarities, and differences. We have to interpret and analyze the information, and then we have to express with the correct language. When listening, it's always necessary to use appropriate expression for establishing categories, for sequencing or ordering the items, such as sequence connectors, or to identify the listing criteria, according to, or many other examples we have seen. In academic and technical English, then, listing is a very important function, and we have to have certain expressions in order to express to present the lists correctly. Thank you very much.